Picture this on a quiet midsummer morning in your backyard. The kind where dew still clings to the grass like tiny diamonds, and the air carries that sweet, earthy promise of a good growing day. You step out with your coffee mug in hand, only to spot your favorite tomato plant at the edge of the bed, looking utterly defeated. Its leaves have faded to the color of old parchment left too long in the sun, stems sagging heavy toward the ground, as if the weight of the world rests on them, and those hopeful yellow flowers that unfurled just last week have already curled shut for good. Most folks would sigh, grab the shovel, yank the whole thing out by the roots, and toss it onto the compost pile with a quiet mutter about bad luck or poor soil. But here's what changes everything if you pause for a moment and look closer. That plant isn't truly finished. It's simply starving. Missing one or two key nutrients the earth around its roots can no longer supply in the right balance. And the beautiful part, the part that still makes me smile every time I share it with fellow gardeners, is that those missing pieces can arrive at the plant's doorstep in as little as 48 hours, delivered through simple liquids you can stir up right from what's already tucked away in the average kitchen cupboard or fridge drawer. 5 everyday kitchen treasures, really, turned into gentle, fast-acting elixirs that university soil labs have quietly measured for their power, that families tending homestead plots across the American heartland and European countryside have passed down through generations, and that the big garden centers somehow overlook because there's simply no shiny package or hefty price tag attached. No profit in a handful of onion skins or a forgotten banana peel, after all. This isn't about fancy bottles or secret formulas from afar. It's about turning what most people rinse down the drain or bury in the bin into the very lifeblood your struggling plants crave. I've watched it happen season after season in my own patch and heard the same delighted stories from gardeners in temperate zones, from the cool, misty hills of the Pacific Northwest to the shorter summers of the British Isles and the variable springs of the Midwest. What ties it all together is a simple truth. The garden doesn't need complicated chemistry. It needs us to listen, to notice the quiet signals, and to respond with what nature already provides in abundance, right at home. Let's begin with something as humble as the papery brown skins you peel from onions before chopping the rest for supper. You know those dry, crinkly layers that end up in the trash without a second thought? They're actually bursting with potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron in concentrations that surprise even seasoned soil testers, plus a natural compound called quercetin that acts like a protective shield for the plant, much the way it supports our own bodies when we eat onions or apples. In the garden, that quercetin helps leaves stand up to scorching afternoon sun without wilting, slows down fungal troubles that love humid July days, and keeps the whole plant's internal balance steady when a sudden heat wave rolls across your zone or a cool night dips the thermometer lower than expected in early autumn. The mistake so many of us make at first, and I'll admit I did it myself years back with a row of peppers that looked ready to call it quits, is burying those skins straight into the soil, expecting slow decomposition to do the job. It works eventually, sure, but by the time the nutrients unlock from those tough fibers, your plant might already be too far gone under the summer sun. The real magic happens when you invite water into the picture. The same everyday tap water that steeps tea in your mug every morning. Drop a generous handful of those dry onion skins into a quart jar, fill it with cool water, and set it on the counter out of direct light. In 24 to 48 hours, the liquid shifts from clear to a soft amber hue, like a light herbal infusion, carrying all those minerals and protective elements dissolved and ready for immediate uptake through the roots. No waiting weeks for breakdown, no guesswork. Pour it gently around the base of that yellowing tomato or a pepper that's stopped blooming, and you'll notice the stems beginning to firm up within days, new leaves unfurling a richer green, and flower buds forming again by the end of the week. In cooler European climates, like those damp British summers where fungal pressure builds fast, this elixir seems to bolster the plant's own defenses even more noticeably, while in hotter American zones, it helps the roots pull water more efficiently during dry spells. One gardener friend of mine in a Zone 6 backyard swore by it after a late frost nipped her seedlings. The onion skin tea not only revived them, but kept blossom end troubles at bay all season long. And the best part? It costs nothing, smells faintly earthy rather than chemical, and leaves you wondering why we ever reached for bagged solutions when the kitchen peel bin held the answer all along. But sometimes a plant's troubles run deeper than a single mineral shortage, especially after a stretch of rainy weather that leaches the soil or a dry spell that compacts things underground. That's when I turn to the cloudy water left from rinsing rice, the stuff most of us pour down the sink without thinking twice. At first glance, it seems ordinary, carrying starches, B vitamins, and tiny traces of iron and zinc. Yet leave it in a covered jar on the counter for 3 to 5 days, and something remarkable unfolds. A faint, sour aroma rises, reminiscent of the first bubbles in a homemade sourdough starter, signaling that lactic acid bacteria and wild yeasts have moved in like a bustling crew of invisible helpers. These are the same beneficial microbes celebrated in traditional farming practices across Asia, and now studied in labs worldwide for their ability to revive tired garden soil. When you dilute that fermented rice water, 1 part to about 10 parts plain water, and water it into the bed around your drooping plants, you're not feeding the tomato directly so much as throwing a lively feast for the billions of soil organisms living in that top inch of earth. In my experience, within a single week, the microbial population around the roots can surge, turning the soil into a living, breathing network that breaks down nutrients faster and makes them available exactly when the plant needs them. It's the difference between handing a thirsty friend a single glass of water and giving them a full well with a bucket they can draw from any time. I've used it in early spring here, when the ground still holds winter chill, watching sluggish beds of beans and squash suddenly push out vigorous growth as the soil life wakes up. In European gardens with heavier clay soils that tend to stay cool and compacted longer into the season, this fermented rinse works wonders for improving drainage and aeration without any digging. The key is patience with the fermentation. Rush it and pour fresh rice water instead, and you'll miss the microbial bloom that makes all the difference. Dilute properly too, because straight from the jar the acidity can sting tender roots, especially young seedlings just finding their footing after transplant. For plants that need a quicker nitrogen hit because they're looking pale and leggy right now, not next month, the answer often hides in the crisper drawer of your fridge, those forgotten vegetables turning soft at the bottom. Overripe tomatoes, wilted lettuce heads, bruised cucumbers, soft peppers, or leftover spinach that never made it into the salad. Instead of letting them head to the landfill or a slow compost pile, gather them into a 5-gallon bucket, cover completely with water, weigh them down with a plate to keep everything submerged, and let time and bacteria do their work for about 2 weeks. The result is a dark, earthy-smelling liquid, packed with nitrogen released through a natural process called mineralization, happening far quicker in water than it ever would in a traditional heap. Diluted at 1 part to 30 with fresh water and poured straight to the root zone, this brew can green up tired foliage in 4 to 6 days, coax new shoots from the leaf axils, and encourage thicker stems that stand proud against the wind. I remember one particularly humid July in a Zone 7 garden where a whole row of eggplants looked ready to surrender. A few applications of this vegetable scrap digestate brought them back stronger than before, with fruits setting in abundance right through August. Just steer clear of the common pitfalls that trip up so many of us the first time around. Never spray it on the leaves as a foliar feed, and never use it undiluted, because the concentration can scorch foliage or damage delicate root hairs beyond repair. Apply it only to the soil in the cool of early morning or evening, and watch how it respects the plant's natural rhythms. In cooler northern European summers, where nitrogen leaches faster from frequent rains, this method shines by replenishing what the weather steals away, while in drier American regions, it helps maintain steady growth without the salt buildup you sometimes see from store-bought options. The quiet wonder here is realizing how much free nitrogen your household already produces each week, enough to keep a modest vegetable plot thriving, if we simply redirect it back to the earth instead of letting it vanish. When a single remedy feels like it's only half the story, and your plants seem to need a broader rescue all at once, I reach for what I like to call the breakfast tonic, a full-spectrum brew stirred together from everyday morning leftovers. Start with banana peels for that generous potassium boost that powers flowering and helps the plant move water efficiently through its veins, preventing those frustrating splits in ripening fruit skins during hot, dry spells. Add finely crushed eggshells for calcium, the very element that strengthens cell walls and wards off the sunken black spots of blossom end rot that plague so many tomato growers when soil moisture fluctuates wildly, as it often does in variable Midwest summers or the unpredictable showers of a British June. Used coffee grounds bring a gentle, slow-release nitrogen along with organic matter that earthworms adore, improving soil texture without the acidity myth that still circulates online. Fresh grounds can lower pH a touch, but the used ones that come out of your morning brew sit nearly neutral, around 6.5 to 6.8, perfect for most vegetable beds, and far kinder than many people realize. Then stir in a tablespoon of Epsom salt for magnesium, the heart of every chlorophyll molecule. When leaves yellow between the veins, while the veins stay green. This targeted boost can reverse the pattern dramatically within days, though it's wise to confirm the cause first, since nitrogen shortages yellow older leaves, and iron troubles hit the newest growth instead. Finally, a spoonful of blackstrap molasses acts as the dinner bell for microbes, speeding up the whole breakdown so the brew matures in just 3 to 5 days instead of weeks, releasing everything in a lively, balanced wave that feeds both plant and soil at once. Combine it all in a gallon of warm water, cover the bucket loosely, and let it steep in a shady spot. The result is a rich, living tonic carrying potassium, calcium, nitrogen, magnesium, iron, and trace minerals alongside active bacteria ready to go to work. I've seen it revive a struggling zucchini patch in late summer when days grew shorter and the plants looked worn from the season's demands, new fruits forming plump and sweet where none had appeared for days. The one detail that elevates this from good to truly exceptional is never skipping the molasses. Without it, the ingredients release nutrients too slowly for a plant already showing stress. In European cottage gardens with shorter seasons, this tonic helps squeeze every last week of productivity from the beds, while across American zones, it pairs beautifully with companion plants like basil or marigolds that further deter pests and enrich the soil harmony. For those times when the trouble feels bigger and the soil itself seems exhausted after years of heavy use, there's an older, time-tested approach that reaches back before synthetic fertilizers ever existed. The simple, yet powerful manure tea, sometimes called the giant tea bag by folks who learned it from grandparents tending homesteads in the hills. Use well-aged manure from chickens, cows, or rabbits, never fresh, because fresh carries too much ammonia, weed seeds, and potential pathogens that can scorch or contaminate. Stuff a shovelful into an old pillowcase or burlap sack, tie it closed, and suspend it in a 5-gallon bucket of water for 3 to 5 days. The liquid draws out nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and a host of trace elements, leaving the solids safely contained so nothing burns the roots or introduces unwanted visitors to your beds. Chicken manure tea packs the strongest nitrogen punch for rapid greening and flowering. ideal for a tomato that needs a quick comeback in the peak of a hot American July. Cow manure offers a gentler balance that builds long-term soil structure, perfect for clay-heavy European plots that benefit from improved humus over time. Rabbit manure stands out as the mildest of all, safe enough even for young seedlings, because its nitrogen is already in a plant-friendly form. Dilute the finished brew to the color of weak iced tea, about 1 part to 10 with clean water, and apply it in the cool hours of morning or evening so the nutrients soak in rather than evaporating under midday sun. I've watched it transform an entire bed of fading peppers in a Zone 5 garden after a stretch of poor weather, the plants rebounding with sturdy stems and abundant harvest that lasted well into autumn. The trade-off with synthetic options becomes clear here. While those quick-fix granules feed the plant for a season, manure tea feeds the whole living system beneath the surface, restoring the microbial web that keeps gardens resilient year after year. In wetter climates, it helps counteract leaching, and in drier ones, it supports moisture retention without adding salts that build up over time. What brings all 5 of these approaches together is a deeper principle that feels almost like a quiet conversation with the garden itself. The scraps we so casually discard in a modern kitchen are often the precise ingredients the soil has been quietly asking for, delivered in forms that plants and microbes can use right away. Whether you're coaxing life back into a single tomato at the edge of a backyard bed in the humid southeast, reviving a cottage plot in the cooler, misty corners of northern Europe, or nurturing a homestead row through the variable seasons of the Midwest, these liquids offer small, practical wins that add up to something truly rewarding. They teach us patience with the brewing process, attention to dilution so we never overwhelm tender roots, and the joy of noticing subtle shifts, a stem straightening overnight, a leaf deepening in color, a new flower bud appearing where none dared before. Of course, no method is foolproof without a bit of troubleshooting woven in. If results seem slow after a few days, check your watering consistency first. Plants under stress from irregular moisture often need the soil steadied before they can drink in the nutrients. In cooler springs, give ferments an extra day or two to fully activate. In blazing summer heat, keep brews shaded so they don't turn overly pungent or lose potency.